I really felt at that time like, man, Kanye was so right, because I now owe this manager who didn't help with that. He may have done one meeting for me, but I could have done that myself. I owed this guy 20% of the money I just made that he didn't help me make. All right, welcome to my channel, The Life and Times of LZ Reeves, where I tell stories about my faith journey, stories about my time in the music industry. I tell stories about my life as a pastor and just my journey of walking with faith and growing in my relationship with Jesus. I think it's so important that we hear more faith stories because it helps us to walk by faith. Your stories help me walk by faith, and I hope that my story helps you walk by faith. And so like and subscribe. Hit the notification bell so that anytime I upload a video, you can be notified of it and that you can help my channel grow. Today, I want to talk about the time when Kanye gave me some advice and I didn't listen to it, and what the outcome of that advice was. Stay tuned to my channel. You will probably hear quite a few stories about Kanye West, because I was not only inspired by Kanye, but Kanye had also been a mentor of mine. He kind of helped me navigate the music industry, and I had been blessed to be in different rooms and different settings in the early part of his music career. And so I saw a lot of things. I had a front seat to the making of Jesus Walks, which I will talk about and link to. I'll do a story about that. I want to talk about the time where I was right at the door of the music industry. I had known Kanye for a little while. I had been sending him beats, and he would critique my beats and give me pointers of things that I could do to make my beats better. And I had left my corporate job. So I graduated with a degree in electrical engineering in December of 1999. And so I guess I met Kanye in December of 1998, because I had known him before I graduated from Purdue University. And I worked at a company called Procter & Gamble for about a little over a year. And while I was there, you know, I continued to make beats. I started working with local artists in Cincinnati, Ohio, where I was living and working, and continued to connect with Kanye, continued to get, you know, his advice and mentorship about how to be better, how to get in the industry and things of that nature. And I really had come to a place to where I felt that it was time for me to leave my job and just to pursue this career in music. And I wasn't sure about it, so I prayed about it, and I fasted and prayed, and I felt like God was telling me to go, like to trust him and to go and leave my job. And that's another story. So I will share that story at another time, just that whole journey of leaving my job and getting into the music industry. But this is during the season when I had left my job and I hadn't yet gotten into the music industry, but I was making beats and I was getting better. And I remember there was one particular batch of beats that I made, and now these days y'all call them cook-ups, but like back in those days they were beat tapes, and they weren't actually on cassettes, but they were on CDs, but we would call them a beat tape. And so every CD of beats that you would take to shop around, that was like a beat tape. So I made this one particular beat tape in January of 2002. So I left my job in September of 2001. In January of 2002, I made this beat tape, and this was like my best beats yet. I had met a couple people who were in the music industry. I went to this Destiny Child concert with Nelly, and I met a guy who worked for Bad Boy Records, and he had started talking about managing me. And I had told Kanye, I was talking to Kanye, I was like, yo, you know, yeah, like, you know, this guy wants to manage me. Like, what should I do? He was like, don't sign with a manager, because he had good experiences and also some bad experiences with managers. And he was like, whatever you do, don't sign with a manager until they show you what they can do. Like, he was like, make him sell beats for you before you sign a contract. The hard part about that advice was the guy who wanted to manage me, he had another friend who was a music producer who was, you know, pretty established, who he was working with. And that producer told him that he wanted to sign me to his production company. But the only way that I could sign with this producer's production company is if I signed with this guy as a manager. So on one side, Kanye's like, whatever you do, don't sign a contract until he sells some beats for you. Then he said, and if you sign a contract, don't sign for a year. Sign for 6 months maximum. That way, if it doesn't go well, he's not selling beats for you, you can get out the contract. Like 6 months will go fast. So don't sign a contract longer than 6 months. And he's like, if you don't listen to my advice, I'm never giving you advice ever again. That's kind of how he was. He was like, you don't listen to my advice, I'll never give you advice ever again. And I'm like, okay. But on the other side of things, I got this producer, this potential production deal and it's linked to this manager. And they're like, listen, the only way we're giving you this production deal, I'll give you a little advance, but you got to sign this management contract. And so I'm like, waiting. I'm like, yo, like, all right, well, can we make the contract 6 months? And he's like, no, because 6 months, not a whole lot will happen in 6 months. It's a year. I'm not going to negotiate further than that. And then the producer's like putting pressure on him to get me signed to the management agreement so we can sign a production agreement. And so I'm like, what do I do? Do I listen to Kanye or do I go ahead and sign this contract? So I went ahead and I signed the contract. I had it looked over by an attorney, but I went ahead and signed the contract. And sure enough, it was like right after I signed the contract that I personally went and shopped and sold my first 3 beats to Foxy Brown. My manager, who I just signed with, had nothing to do with establishing that connection, had nothing to do with getting those beats sold. And I really felt at that time like, man, Kanye was so right, because I now owe this manager who didn't help with that. He may have done one meeting for me, but I could have done that myself. I owed this guy 20% of the money I just made that he didn't help me make. And the whole point of having the manager is helping me make the money. And so he gets compensated a percentage of the deals that he gets me because he's helping me get the deals. And so it makes sense in that regard, but I didn't listen to Kanye, and now I owe this guy, 20% of whatever 7,500 was. I can't even do the math on top of my head. I guess it was 1,000. That'll make it 100, or 20% will make it $200. So $7,000, $1,400. So a little over $1,400, like around $1,500. I owe this guy who didn't help me sell this beat. So I was a little annoyed at that, and then throughout the duration of that year that I was signed to him, he didn't sell any beats for me to anybody. Kanye was right. I should have made him prove his worth before signing a contract with him. I got locked into a deal, and I learned my first lesson about the music industry. Don't just sign a contract because somebody is telling you they can do something for you. Have them show you what they can do for you. Do a handshake agreement, or do like a non-exclusive agreement where it's like, hey, listen, if you get me work, I'll pay you X amount. Maybe you could do a contract like that. But if you're trying to get in the music industry, understand like you're your best advocate. You're gonna advocate for yourself more than any producer, more than anybody's gonna do. Maybe you don't have all the access that working with a manager or working with another producer will give you. But understand, like signing a contract is basically saying that I agree and this other party both agree that this is a good contract. And a lot of times people sign contracts and they get into situations where they don't really feel that that's the best thing for them, but they sign it anyways. Your signature is saying, I agree with what's in here. And although it didn't pan out, and although it did not work to my advantage to sign that contract, I was still obligated to pay this manager, and it really sucked. And I'll tell you another story about another manager who came along during the duration of that contract. So in that year, I found another manager who actually helped me start selling beats. So I'll tell you that story another time. But I was locked in this contract, and so it was a really crazy situation. So if you're out there and you're trying to get into the music industry or any industry, make sure that the people that you're signing with are able to do the work that they're saying they can do for you. Otherwise, you lock yourself into a situation that you're contractually obligated to pay somebody for work that may or may not be doing, or you may be stuck not being able to move forward because of your contractual obligation. So take Kanye's advice. Don't sign a contract. If you do sign a contract, sign it as short as possible. Don't sign it for more than 6 months or 3 months, and have the person work for their keep. Like, hey, if you want me to sign for you longer, then work for me. Show me what you can do, and then it'll make sense for both of us. A contract should be a win-win situation, not a lose-win situation. And the deal that I signed was a lose-win situation. I never should have signed a contract. I should listen to Kanye. If I don't just listen to him and waited, I would have went ahead and sold these beats to Foxy Brown. I would have kept all the money. It would have been better in just building those relationships that I was building with Foxy and her brother and their camp. It would have given me more leverage also to, get with other folks that could have helped me out. But that's another story. I'll tell you about how I had prayed about my circumstances when I was in this contract, and God gave me some clear instructions, and how the thing that God had said to me about how I would know when I was with the right people, how that actually happened, and exactly what he said would happen came true. So can't wait to share that story with you. Anyways, if you're not a subscriber, subscribe. I got stories. I got plenty of stories. This is the lives and times of LZ Reeves. I look forward to you I look forward to, what do I say? How do I end this video? See you in the next video.